Hi, I know many of you have heard of 9/11. Some people were very young and didn't really understand what 9/11's about. So, this is a story about um, Lutnick, who is running Donald Trump's election campaign and was second in line, head of the Canter Fitzgerald investment company. They did financial investments, and they're involved with the stock market and everything. And they had the top 5 floors of the second tower that was hit during 9/11. So they had lots and lots of people in the building. And when the first tower was hit, the employees of Canter Fitzgerald phoned their families and said, I want to come home. I want to get out of the building. But the Canter Fitzgerald people told me I had to stay, and if I left, I was going to be fired. I was not going to have my job the next day. So these people, they're very young people trying to make it, probably, maybe working while they're in college or just after college, but they were not on the high end of the income. They were looking towards their futures. And so they stayed. They decided they didn't want
The
to
site where the first two planes crashed
lose their
into the
jobs.
Twin Towers, killing 2,016 people. So many of them worked in the financial industry, and another 403 New York City police, firefighters, and Port Authority officers died trying to rescue those trapped. No other company took a bigger toll on 9/11 than Wall Street financial giant Canter Fitzgerald. 658 employees were working on the top floors of the North Tower when the first plane hit. Howard Lutnick headed the company then, and 23 years later, he not only is still the CEO, but every September 11th, he holds a charity day, which to date has raised, well, I'll let you give the tally right now, Howard, but for countless charities
600
across the
employees
country, what is the total
died.
tally since you've been doing this?
Just under $370 million.
This guy's
so
a billionaire.
far to
That's nothing to him.
This year, we're running at a record pace, so better than last year, so we'll exceed $12 million this year alone. And, in the beginning, our employees gave their 25% of their compensation.
So he made his
really
employees pay
families, and now we're taking
25%
care
of their
over
income
150 charities everywhere in the world.
for
Families are
the people
really
that
what
died.
always comes to mind when I think about 9/11 and how many families were torn apart by these murderous cowards. I want to show you some video from this morning's ceremony, Howard, at Ground Zero, because to me it really crystallized how much time has gone by, and yet the victims' legacies live on. These two boys weren't even alive when 9/11 happened, but their grandparents were. Now, the red-headed boy on the left, his grandpa was Richard J. O'Connor, who worked at Marsh & McLennan in the World Trade Center. Rick was just 49 years old, father of 3 when he was killed. But that little boy's parent was just a child when Rick died. So how, 23 years later, do you view the resilience that survivors had to show by plowing ahead with life, fatherless and motherless, despite the tragedies?
So we wanted to take care of the families, and the families, by pulling them together and having them be part of our family, I think really mattered. The Canter Fitzgerald Relief Fund, where their families knew they could rely upon us to be there for them both.
Now, the thing you have to remember, there are recordings of people trying to get out of that building, saying they wanted to get out, get home, they were afraid. But the Canter Fitzgerald bosses said, if you leave, you will not have a job the next day. You are required to stay at your job, top 5 floors of that building, and continue working as if nothing is going on. Meanwhile, the building next door has an airplane in it and is on fire. Those people eventually died from asphyxiation, smoke, burning, jumping from the top of the building, or when the building collapsed from dustification, and everyone, of course, that was in the building died at that point.
Emotionally and financially. And then, you know, we offered every kid of someone who got killed who worked for us a job. They knew they had a job. They knew they had a place where they could go, where people would.
But did he offer them an education, a good school?
Care for them. And, you know, I've been hiring kids this week. This week, we hired a young woman who just graduated college. And, you know, she took the summer off, of course, but she just graduated college. And she was, you know, just pregnant. Their mother was pregnant with her on 9/11. I mean, how
Now, he hired one kid this week. One kid. He had 600 plus employees that were killed during 9/11. And this week he only hired one kid. Although he says he promised them all a job. He didn't say a good job, just a job. And so this is what we get. This guy is running Trump's re-election campaign. And it just shows these billionaires at the top have very little regard for people at the bottom. And this man, in his emergency, made a bad decision, just like Trump did during COVID, and required those people to stay in the building, stay in the top floors. So even if they stayed in the building at work, they would have had over 100 floors to get down in an emergency. And they saw that the other building, the plane crashed in the middle of the building, so they wouldn't have been able to get out in that similar sort of situation, which unfortunately did occur moments later. So you can't rely on these people. These people will leave you in the dust, just like the millions of Americans that died during COVID. People relied on Trump. People relied on his judgment. They relied on the people he chose to be in his cabinet. He chose a bunch of people that were not qualified, who didn't care about the American people. And hence we had dead bodies everywhere. Morgues were full. They were in vans. They were in warehouses. Relatives, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, co-workers, various relatives, friends, neighbors, heaped up like trash and later discarded unceremoniously. Just heartbreaking for me, and I'm sorry for anybody who has to have gone through that. But you can't trust these people, and Trump is the same way. You know, he has a financial goal that he wants to reach. Now, Trump was president for 4 years. He's not a new candidate for this presidency like Kamala is. She has not been president before. Trump was president for 4 years. So last time he ran for the same thing. He said he was going to stop the immigrants coming over illegally across the border, and he was going to build a wall. He said Mexico was going to pay for the wall. That was a lie. And then when Mexico said it was a lie, they said they had nothing to do with that wall and they were not going to pay for it. But Trump kept insisting. Trump has this policy. If you say it over and over again, people will believe you, even if it's a full-out lie. And he does that repeatedly during this campaign, unfortunately. And he's teaching other people to do the same sort of lying. So anyway, he gets to be president. He's president for 4 years. Well, he builds his wall. He's very proud. They see all this stuff going up. And he's probably has his own contractors doing it at an elevated price, so that we citizens are probably paying extra high amounts for the materials and for the people doing the work, because Trump is a building contractor, and so he would have a bunch of people who would want the job, and we would pay for them to come from New York down to Mexico construct the wall, and so forth. And he did that. He built his wall, and it didn't work. Well, people are still coming in. That's what he's complaining about. When he made a speech in June, I believe it was June 15th, 2015, when he said he was going to run for president, he said one of his main thing was getting that wall up, because he thought these Mexicans were coming in and they were horrible. They were rapists. They were criminals of all kinds. And so he was going to build a wall and to keep these people out. Oh, I lost my picture.
Unbelievably cool is that? And they joined.
So he built the wall, and he did nothing else. That's all he did. He built a wall. He didn't take any other steps. He had the full Congress behind him. He could have done anything he wanted and felt necessary to stop the illegal immigrants. He had the time, the ability, but he spent most of his time golfing. He would drag those security officers to his private businesses, his golf clubs in the United States and in other foreign countries. He was also celebrating himself with big parties with the Queen. The Queen said she didn't like him, and he was celebrating himself in China. He was celebrating himself in Russia. What about the wall? What did he do about the wall? Nothing. He didn't do anything else about the wall. Now that he has been fired, he is not president anymore. Joe Biden is president. Now all he can do is complain about the wall. Well, he was president. If he had something he wanted to do about the wall, he should have done it while he was president. He had the ability, he had the power, but he didn't do anything, and now he's using it for his campaign in 2024. But it's fake. He doesn't want to do anything about the wall, because if he did, he would have done it in the past. And right now, everyone wants to come in because our economy is booming. We have a great economy. The stock market has been at its highest, and it keeps getting even higher, and business is booming. People are starting up new businesses. But Trump keeps trying to picture that the economy is doing so bad. Well, it can't be doing bad, because Trump is offering to sell watches to regular people for $10,000. Well, you can't. That is being a real scoundrel. If you think the economy is bad, that's like going up to a poor person, who's drinking out of a soup can, and trying to sell them a watch for $10,000. If you think the economy is bad, then you're a scoundrel. If you think the economy is great, that's why you're selling them $10,000 watches, because they have jobs, they can afford it. So Trump has agreed, in essence, that the economy is great, the economy is booming. He's selling all kinds of crap to his followers. Trump has the opinion that if you say something over and over and over again, people will believe it, and that's what his followers, the maggots, believe. Whatever Trump says, because he repeats it and repeats it and repeats it, and eventually it becomes part of their sayings, part of their belief system. So, and I'm going to say the same thing with Afghanistan. Trump complained that the minute Biden came in, he pulled the troops out of Afghanistan. Well, it's been over 20 years. How long do you want the war to last? We spend billions of dollars in Afghanistan, and keeping them there longer was crazy. If Trump wanted the war to end in Afghanistan, he would have prepared over his 4-year term as president to have all of that military stuff leaving the country slowly and in a very professional manner. But he didn't do that. That's because he wanted the war to continue. He wanted to continue spending billions of dollars on the war. And so you can't complain that we lost billions of dollars by pulling our troops out, but we saved lives. And Trump wanted to spend billions, but put soldiers continually at risk in Afghanistan. It doesn't make sense. We didn't really lose anything in Afghanistan, because if Afghanistan wants our technology, most of that stuff they can get through the black market. Almost all of that stuff is available. So what Biden did was correct in getting our troops out. Unfortunately, because Trump didn't do anything during his presidency, he was so busy playing golf and celebrating himself that he did not take time to think about the lives of the soldiers in Afghanistan and the possibility they could be killed, and how many billions of dollars it was costing us keeping those people there. It was a huge financial investment every year, keeping the people in Afghanistan. So Biden did the correct thing, because Trump did not have the guts to do it when he was president. So cheers for Biden. Biden also did the correct thing by currently, in both the war between Ukraine and Russia, and Israel and Gaza, he is keeping American troops off the ground. Israel is trying very hard to pull the United States into their war, but Biden is very strong and is keeping Americans out. So Americans are not at war. America is supplying artillery and so forth to the Ukraine and Israel, but it is not at war with its troops, and that's the way it should be. I did a video where Putin says he is following the path of Biden and the UN and going for a two-state system in Israel, which Trump opposes. Trump, I believe, would go in, because he's been paid many millions by Netanyahu, and I believe Trump would go in and just kill all of the Palestinians, because they want to make that land in Gaza into a nice upper class resort spa area, which of course would bear the Trump name. So Trump, if he wanted to get out of if he wanted to build a border, he would have done it during his presidency. If he wanted to get out of Afghanistan, he would have done it during his presidency. But don't come back into the next guy's presidency and then start yelling that they should have done it a different way. Trump had 4 full years with a very cooperative Congress that he kept under his thumb, and he could have done anything he wanted, any way he wanted, and he could have gotten the Afghanistan troops out. He could have gotten all of the tanks and stuff out and all of the gear out any way he wanted to, but he didn't. He didn't do it. And then as far as the border, he had this 4 years, had Congress under his thumb, and he could have done anything in addition to the wall that he wanted, but he didn't do it. He didn't do it, and now he's complaining that he didn't do it. What kind of nonsense is this? We need to get Trump out. We need to get somebody who has a new perspective, who can lead us in a better way. And that is going to be Vice President Kamala Harris, former Attorney General for the state of California, former California Senator, and current Vice President of the United States under Joe Biden. So what do you think? Like and subscribe. Bye.